talking about, like the work that you're doing now, and, I think it's amazing, the amount of content you're putting out there and what you're dedicating your time to, getting these important messages. Do you want to quickly explain one of the projects, that I'm actually lucky enough to be part of, Happy Me and MND, this program that we're putting together? Do you want to quickly, give a bit of a overview on that?
And you and I connected, I think late last year, late 2020, and kept in contact from there. And the opportunity to take, and my work obviously is whilst it's pointed at the MND community, and I just want to be a voice, for that community. But clearly, and I see it directly that, there's family, there's friends, there's carers. I have carers in coming to help me. I can't dress myself anymore. My arms won't allow me to sort of do a lot of that process in the morning of, out of bed, shower, shave, dress, breakfast, all that sort of stuff. So I have someone coming in and, but a carer, they're living with that, every day. That's their profession. That's their job, to come in and do that sort of stuff. So I looked at that and said, well, how do we assist people who are, either very directly or someone indirectly or whatever it might be, but are dealing with, in my case, someone with MND, but, there's a whole other heap of shit going on out there. How do we support that network of people? And that's sort of another conversation that started with you and I to take the core learnings and principles from your learnings and adapt them to a sort of an MND environment, and then get some specialists in who, again, are across both sectors, I suppose, or both areas, and get them to provide their professional support and opinions and those sorts of things. So that we come up with a toolbox that says, well, if you've got MND, someone who's got MND, it's not just directed at the sufferers of MND. It's family, it's friends, it's carers, it's whoever it might be. I was fortunate enough to speak at Parliament House in Canberra, I think it was back in May. And it's a longish story how I got there, but there's myself and a lady called Sharon who, and poor thing, she's in a wheelchair, she's lost her voice, and she's mid-30s. And so she prepared a conversation to have with the people who were present, which was, there's a few senators in the room. And so it was a pretty important occasion. It was to launch the MND Australia website, which I've been involved with. And her 10-year-old son read out her, her journey, I suppose, and where she's at and whatever else. And, it's such an emotional moment that here's a 10-year-old kid who should be out, kicking the footy and doing all these things and whatever else. And what's he doing? He's reading, his mum's heartfelt, story to a group of parliamentarians. That's not something 10-year-old kids should be exposed to. So that's a sort of example of where the support network can be so much deeper and provide more meaningful tools, I suppose, to support.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of it, like you said, it affects everyone, and we need to look after, educate everyone about how they can look after themselves and other people. So I think it's so important.
It's an important part of why I do what I'm doing. And I'm a drop in the ocean in real terms as to what this is all about. Every little bit helps, doesn't it? That's
every bit helps, and I think that's the thing. I always try and remind myself, if you can just help even one person, that's a huge success, because a lot of us don't even get that opportunity. And I always try and remind myself that. And you hear people that have gotten help from it. Even when we've done our interview and getting people reaching out and saying they took something out of it, or it really helped them overcome an issue they were dealing with, then you're like, well, it's worth. What's more important than doing something like that? Or, it makes you feel good as well to know that you're contributing in some way to helping people.
Yeah, because a mate of mine, I'm not sure if I told you the story, but a mate of mine had fairly public issues as well. And, he rang me one day, he was on the road and rang me and said, I'll just listen to your podcast. I had an hour in the car, I listened to your podcast, which is the podcast I did with you. And he said, I've spoken to every, shrink, blah, 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 imaginable, and you're the first person I've heard who made sense. And I go, wow, that just just blew me away. I'm so grateful for that feedback, but I'm also grateful for being able to support him. So
exactly, mate.
That's what it's all about, I think.
It again goes back as well to that fact that you're speaking openly and honestly, and I think I think as well, seeing a man talk just openly about things. Men aren't used to having that role model to hear from. We're taught traditionally to not do that. You see a lot of men really taking value from that, because everyone wants to be able to, be more honest and open about things, but often feel like it's going to be embarrassing to do it, or they might be looked at as being weak or judged. But when you give them permission, it feels great to be able to talk about things.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think I've probably learned that as well. I get I get unbelievably emotional now. Just completely at the drop of a hat. I find, and I'm comfortable with that, right? But there'll be these something will be going on TV or whatever it might be, and someone will say something. There's got to be a 5-second pause for me to gather myself, because my voice will break if I if I answer right now. Then I'll give away the fact that I'm a bit teary, and it's seriously at the drop of a hat. So I'm so much more in touch with my emotions now, which is, again, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, mate. Yeah,
I come back to authentic. I mean, people can see that I'm being authentic about things, because I am being genuinely emotional about something and moved by something. So
totally,
it's good, and I embrace that. I really do.
It's part of being
happy to tell people about it. It's a good conversation starter.
Part of being human, really.
It is, isn't it? Absolutely. Because the alternative is bottling it up, and we both know that doesn't work.
doesn't work in the long term, that's for sure.
Nah, absolutely not.
And you talk about using music as therapy. Is that been something you found more recently, or is it something you've always done?
I've got a whole heap of time in my hands, obviously, now, and it's how I sort of best spend that. And I'm finding I'm able to do nothing. I mean, that's just, and it sounds silly, right? But that's a skill that I've learned. I think the ability to do nothing and just sort of be comfortable in my own company and those sorts of things. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts and doing all sorts of things just to fill in the day. And I can, just little things like I can't read much anymore because I just have difficulty holding a book and reading and turning a page and that sort of stuff. So I do a bit more of that on the tablet, but all that sort of stuff that I'm dealing with. I found that music, and it's probably the advent of Spotify, to be fair about it, that all these avenues have opened up to stuff that I never would have listened to before. And you listen to one artist and they suggest that you listen to this one and whatever, and that's been a real it's been a good experience, I suppose. And so I'm listening to, I'm hopeless at music, right? I don't know the first thing about it, but I get the concept of of beats and rhythm and those sorts of things. So I find myself listening to the 8 count and the change ups and those sorts of things, which I wouldn't have listened to before. So I'm getting a greater appreciation of and then I'm listening to I'll try and find the bass. I'll try and find that in there and what's the bass doing, and again do that 8 count and try and figure that out. And so I just find probably that aspect, and also the newness of stuff that I just wouldn't listen to before. That I shake my head at music. I mean, I can't believe how is it that every song hasn't been written by now? How do you keep coming up with new stuff and and whatever? Surely every lyric's got to be written, and every piece of music's got to be written by now. But they keep on doing it. And these are really talented people. Just again, it's an area that I'm no good at. So I project myself into these artists and try and think, well, what is the creative mechanism going on in their head that produces this music and produces the lyrics and whatever. I just find that whole thing fascinating. So I'm enjoying that part of the journey at the moment.
I think that's great.
And stuff I never, I wouldn't have had the time to do it before, and I never would have done it. But here we are. So
well, I think there's 2 really important key messages in what you said there as well. Number one, you said I'm learning to do nothing or be okay with that, and that's actually something that all of us need to learn, because we're taught that if we're not being productive all the time, or if we're not achieving or doing things, or and then our mindset gets to the point where people try and sit down for 5 minutes and can't be alone, or can't be alone with their thoughts because they're afraid of what's going to come up. It's not healthy. It's actually very healthy to be able to learn to be alone and have time where you just do nothing. And then the second part that I love about that as well is being more open-minded about, okay, music isn't something I have that big of an understanding about. I'm going to explore it. I'm going to try and delve into it. And I think we can all learn from doing that as well. You know, these points are things that can apply to so many different areas of life that all of us can benefit from what you're talking about there.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good fun too. It's sort of
yeah,
you know, listening and learning, and you find out what you like and what you don't like. So yeah, been good fun.